Hello everyone, and welcome back to Logical A Meets World. I know it has been many months since I have put out a brand new video, and all of it really stems from Startup Week. I took on a huge task that I set upon myself to record as much of Startup Week as I could last year in November and volunteer at the same time. Probably a bit more than I should have taken on, but I decided that I wanted to see if I could do it. For the most part, I was happy that I was able to do it. However, when it came to trying to share clips of the videos that I did from Startup Week, it was incredibly challenging. I had never done that much editing and trying to figure out the good starts and stops, where to transition. The acoustics in the room were not the greatest. I did not have the greatest equipment at all, namely my phone, and that was about it. Couple that with launching my little consulting company, Logical A, which is designed to improve employment for those with autism, and all of the things that encompass that, all of the new networking opportunities, trying to meet those while trying to keep myself as managed as I could. Some days it worked, some days I just folded like a leaf and went through a couple of valleys. I'm coming out of a current valley where I'm down, not exactly thrilled with how I've been performing lately. My diet has suffered, my sleep has suffered, so on and so forth, but that's life. I'm just attributing it to that being life. I know I'm probably not the only one to go through those types of valleys, but long story short, I feel like I can really finally get back into creating more content for the channel. I know the last bit of content was all about last year, and December and January were really, after the holiday, I was completely drained trying to manage that, manage a lot of new contacts and meetings that I had never done before, stretching out past my weekly attendance at 1 Million Cups, which has been fantastic in the last year and a half. I have met a lot of really great people who have gotten to know me. They're highly supportive. They are steering me in a lot of great directions for my little company, which I've yet to get any customers, but I am still working very hard to do that. I have a lot of work to do on my messaging, maybe a few things to change on the website. If you're curious at all about what it is that I'm doing, you can look in the description below the video. You will find a link to my website that will give you more detail as to why I'm doing it, what the aim and the mission are, so on and so forth. Now, in this video, this is going to be about the only new stuff. I had a lot of requests from people to put out the whole video of my presentation at Startup Week on the dilemma of employment and autism. So I am going to attach that to this. Again, this is part of Startup Week. I had no control over acoustics in the various rooms where I recorded. I did the best I could with the equipment I have. I'm a poor startup, like any other startup. Really just trying to find any avenue possible to move forward with as little cost as can be with some of these things. In the future, I do plan on trying to, as my business begins to become profitable, begin to invest more in the channel, do some other things and change some things up in the channel. Maybe it's become a little stale with some of the things. I don't know. Again, this channel isn't supposed to be a job for me. This is really some way for me to reach out and let people know that if you're on the spectrum, you're not alone. There are so many other great voices who do a lot with YouTube and other social media that I don't do so much of, and their channels are outstanding. And I decided if they could bring their voice forward regarding autism, then I would lend my voice too. And that's really what the channel has been about from the beginning. So without further ado, I appreciate everyone who has subscribed, who has followed the channel thus far. 2024, I hope to be a year where I bring a lot of really great stuff. I do plan on doing a future video on nutrition and some of the things that are related to health as it comes to someone on the spectrum, and a variety of the challenges that most people either don't understand or don't struggle with. And we're not talking about food allergies. That is just a given. It happens to every walk of life, but these are going to be more tailored and specific to people on the spectrum. So I know I said without further ado I would attach the video. However, I am severely out of practice when it comes to making videos. It has been a very tough week and a half. I wasn't sure that I would actually record and put anything out towards the end of this week. There are things that I won't get into. It's just that, again, as I said earlier, I've been in kind of this valley, and it has been a struggle to really come back out and move forward, which I am doing my level best to do. So with that being said, here is the full presentation from when I was at Startup Week on the dilemma of autistic employment. If you have questions or suggestions on any of that, please leave some comments. If you found the video very useful, you are encouraged by what I'm trying to do, please like the video, consider subscribing and sharing it with people that you know, and understand that I am going to be doing all I can to help companies understand autism and move the company and go from the company out to people on the spectrum. I'm looking really to build the bridge there of communication that is missing between employers and employees with autism. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for relocating suddenly. We had there needs to be a repair done. It's going to make a lot of noise, and it happened yesterday too, so we just decided, let's move to the classroom where it's nice and quiet. So no microphones today. Before we get started with our 8 a.m. session, we want to tell you a little bit more about Wichita Startup Week.
Is it locked?
I got you.
Oh!
I got you.
And now we've learned that the door locks. Sorry. Maybe like just crack it? Yeah, okay. All right. So we'll tell you a little bit more about Wichita Startup Week and thank some of our sponsors. So Wichita Startup Week is powered by Koch Industries as a time to realize and celebrate the entrepreneurial opportunities we have right here in Wichita, Kansas. This is a volunteer-led event in partnership with Techstars, a collaboration that is worldwide helping entrepreneurs succeed. Before we get started, let's recognize our sponsors. Koch Industries, a presenting sponsor for the 3rd year in a row. Martin Pringle, another 3-year sponsor for our Wichita Win celebration, which we are having this afternoon. For the middle of the noon, so 11 a.m. We also want to thank Black Hills Energy for sponsoring our kickoff party and resource expo, the Kansas Health Foundation and Thrive for sponsoring our tracks, as well as Six Meridian, Emprise Bank, and Hush Blackwell. And they have all contributed, and as well as many other sponsors that you're going to see on signage throughout this building. Let's see, that is all I have for you today before we introduce our speaker. This session is part of our DE&I track, and we are going to welcome Chris Weekly, founder of Logical A, a consulting company designed to educate companies on how to message to applicants on the spectrum and how to better place autistic employees in the company to provide them with the supports that they need to be successful. Chris was diagnosed late with autism in his 30s, and he is here to discuss some of his challenges and how he helps combat those in the workplace with his consultants. Please welcome Chris.
So before we begin, the arrow buttons for,
Yep.
okay, I can use these. Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone here and who isn't here for helping to make this happen. I am extremely honored to have this opportunity to speak in front of all of you. But on the flip side of that, I am absolutely petrified, so let's get started. Quickly, a little bit about me. I was diagnosed in my 30s. I am now 50 from back in August. I have been married for 27 years to a woman who helped me build my very first bridges to the world that everyone lives every day. So before we get into the meat of the discussion, I want to go over the current, I want to introduce you to the current definition of autism as it is now, after we get past the title, which is Solving the Dilemma of Autistic Employment. So right now, autism is now ASD, or autism spectrum disorder. Now this is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means essentially that as our brains are forming, as we begin life, things happen to our brains that don't happen to most brains. In that with the connectors in a normal brain are more like this. For the autistic brain, it's more this, all of these additional connections. Now, because of all of these additional connections, so much more of the world comes into our minds than a regular mind. With autism, this is a very, it has a very broad scope of symptoms with varying levels of severity, which essentially means that there is no template or guideline when you interact with an autistic person, because we're all one of one. And if you missed Carl's talk yesterday, he really went through a point that I want to quickly remind everyone of, who maybe wasn't there or was there, and that every single one of us is one of one. So therefore, we have something just unique within all of us, where it can't be grouped at all because of that one individual difference. And I think in today's world, we gloss over things really too quickly without going into the depth of the whole of a person that we're interacting with. Now, for the sake of time, because I had packed about 6 hours worth of material, I want to take you through some of these statistics as it relates to autism and employment now. As you can see from the number, based on the study that you might read, the unemployment rate for autistic people is 80% or higher. Overseas, it's about 80%. Given last year's survey of companies where we have 20% who are willing to take a chance on people with disabilities, we have 79% who have this belief, though I believe misguided, that find it cost prohibitive to bring people on like myself into their company. I believe this is a lack of education. And Logical A, my dream is to fill in those education gaps, to start building a bridge of better communication. This is going to lead to a better start for autistic people and employers. If the communication is there immediately and there's an understanding, then we can begin to mold how the workplace functions for those on the spectrum. Next, I want to cover some of the projection rates I read, and they are alarming at best as it relates to wanting to enter the workforce for more independence. Depending on the study that you read, whether it's the CDC or another independent study, the chance of a child being autistic is anywhere from 1 in 36 to 1 in 34. According to the latest studies, they estimate that under 3% of adults in the US have autism. However, based on my own experience of being diagnosed later in life, and reaching out and having talks with people who are in their 50s, 60s, and more, who are just getting diagnosed in this day and age, I believe there may be 1, maybe 2 generations of people who are going through life undiagnosed, so this number is extremely low based on that factor. Another reason, personally, I think I'm very behind in getting this started is that with the hundreds of thousands who are going to become adults who are on the spectrum who will need access to the workforce, by 2025 there'll be more than 500,000 who will need access to the workforce, who are becoming adults who need, who are going to want to go into the job market. And there are some barriers I'll discuss later about that. Next, I want to cover diagnoses and the lack thereof. When I was diagnosed, it was much later. I had a lot of other misdiagnoses. I had a lot of medication that was thrown at me, which was not beneficial at all. However, growing up, I was very ostracized because my family didn't understand me, my siblings didn't understand me, school didn't understand me, and so I was going from unknowns and chaos at home to unknowns and chaos at school. So I struggled a lot. I barely graduated. Getting diagnosed and finding out what really was going on with me wasn't so much a, well, how do I go through and begin to understand this? I was crushed because in my mind, it meant that everyone else had been right, that there was something wrong with me, that I didn't do things right, that I was weird. And that stuck with me for a good long time. It took me a long time to dig out of that. When it comes to women and minorities in particular, which was something that I found out through my research, they are the most underdiagnosed demographics that we have. Right now, the statistics will tell you across the country that women are only 0.42% on the spectrum per capita. This number is much higher. I've spoken to many women online and in person who were diagnosed later in life, who spent their life being misdiagnosed because decades ago, there was an understanding in the medical community that only males could be autistic, and this is incredibly wrong. Another big factor is that with minorities, they are the least tested, and per capita in the demographic, they are the most undiagnosed of the population in this country. And there are barriers such as cost and having avenues to reach out to in order to get these diagnoses and get them right. Also, it doesn't help that the average wait time now is 2 to 3 years to get a proper diagnosis. In some parts of Europe, it's much worse. It's closer to 5 years. And these are things that I see coming this way. So now I want to take you through just a handful of things where the struggle is very real for us. Because this spectrum is so vast, I really wanted to put in the ones that I thought made the most sense and that will help provide a quick understanding. For me, sound is a big issue many times, and also the movement of people. If things are too busy and it is getting too loud, I have to find a place to kind of reset myself. And if I don't, humor is my primary coping mechanism. And oftentimes this is off-putting, it is experienced in a very wrong way, but in my mind, it is about me trying to manage what's happening, albeit wrong time, wrong place. So case in point, my wife, I had to go Christmas shopping one year with her, and it was very busy in Kohl's. And so I was just done. So I quickly walked to another aisle, and it's packed because it's Christmas. And she quickly followed behind me, and I turned around and I said, "Ma'am, why are you following me?" And then I chuckled, and then I quickly gave her a hug, and I was like, "I'm sorry." Now, she didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening because she wasn't prepared. Now, I want to touch quickly on eye contact, because this is a very real thing. A lot of autistics can't make eye contact. In this present day and age, especially in the employment environment, people expect eye contact because it is respectful. And they feel disrespected when you don't make eye contact. For me, eye contact is tough because in my head, am I staring? Do I have, creeper peepers now? And, it's not an easy thing. So on the flip side of these struggles that we have are also the unique talents and skills that we offer. For instance, most of you probably didn't know that 44% of people on the spectrum have an above average IQ. Let's quickly dispel that this does not mean super genius. This is nothing like you see on TV and movies. When it comes to high functioning autism, this only means that we can do many more things with little or no assistance than autistics who have more severe symptoms. When we are placed in a job that we're good at, in a modified environment where we can really excel, we are 40% or more in productivity and efficiency than people side by side doing the same exact job. Our ability to hyper-focus is one of the key components that let us tackle a job and just work the job, going through, figuring out where our problems are going to lie, and then working through those. Now, there's a whole other talk when it comes to hyper-focus as it relates to something that most people don't know about, and that is the interoceptive system, which are your other three senses, but they're inside your body. They're things they don't think about, and that's a whole nother talk because there is a downside to the hyper-focus. We're also honest and loyal to those around us. And with that level of honesty and loyalty came, while I was struggling with my diagnosis initially, I was working for a company as their acting systems engineer. And I found some real problems as to how we were doing business and the competitors were. And I gave the CEO a list of the shortfalls, and he was reluctant to address them. And this was probably a very foolish thing that I did, but my next statement to him was, if you aren't prepared to meet the customer where your competitors are, you should close your doors because you're not going to compete against anyone. Now, mind you, this was probably a terrible thing just to blurt out. However, when I work somewhere, to me, I have a role in that company to help keep the doors open, no matter what my job is. Because if I can help keep the doors open, that means everyone gets to come in and they get to have their job and they get to get paid and they get to take care of the things they need to take care of. So we take these things very seriously. So now quickly, I need to move to some of the building blocks I'm looking to create with Logical A as it relates to bringing a better outcome for autistic employment. Before I can do any of what I'm going to quickly go through, the stigma of disclosing has to be eliminated. And this is where employers are going to play a big part. Most autistics I know, including myself, are scared to death to disclose to an employer early on. I have a firm belief that this sinks us more than it does help us to get into the job market. First off, when you say autism, they believe, disability. We're not really keen on hiring people with disabilities. And they have no understanding of autism and the spectrum and the ways that it's not cost prohibitive to bring us into the workforce. In fact, it is a bonus to bring us in because we're not gonna leave soon. We're going to have that comfort. When we have that comfort, we don't wanna be discomfort at all. We don't wanna look to move to somewhere else because that's new and foreign and people we don't know. So going through these, it's my dream in years to come that this begins to shape how companies look at the talent pool. Right now it's all automated, looking for the exact same things. And the bulk of the world is neurotypical. And we are out here with all of these amazing talents, but we're not findable. And I want to help companies begin to shape how job-seeking sites and the like begin to look for talent. Next is the interview. I have lost more opportunities making it to an interview than I have being hired. There are things that companies need to understand when someone discloses. This is the very next step. You have to begin to ask the questions. What sensory issues do you have? Is eye contact difficult? Are different areas of the building something that would be difficult to cope with? How are you with a lot of people walking around? These kinds of things. Do you have something you take with you everywhere to help with stimming? And I hope someone asked me about that. So that's a little homework for you. I had a unbelievable experience interviewing. I was asked by a woman in front of other people if my wife dressed me. Now, I simply said, no, I can dress myself, and I moved on with the interview. But the question stuck with me, and when I got home, I told my wife, I said, you know, I got the oddest question from the interview, and she said, what was it? I said, well, they asked if you dressed me, and my wife ranted about this. She was very angry, but I didn't understand that this was anything that should give me pause. I just didn't. This is what we will miss in social situations. So there are different social cues, whether they're spoken or unspoken. For many of us, the world is very literal. When you say something to me, that is what it is. I don't know to move to any assumptions or assertions or anything like that. I'm just going to respond. And in this day and age of social media, I have seen many people I know on social media absolutely crushed for comments they made about something because that's all they had to go on, is the literal words that were there. And when it comes to things like this, social media now can impact your ability to be employed if it gets out, and there's no way to turn that off, and so that also needs to be addressed. Now, continuing on with the interview, these are some very helpful areas that would be very beneficial. The more information we have, more details we have about an interview, how many people will be there, what's the seating arrangement, and at all costs, if you're going to give a tour, do not give a tour of your company before the interview. That is a lot of unknown stimulation that will sink us. How am I doing on time?
You're doing good. You got 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
That's just 3 more hours of material.
Yeah, I know. And this is the second time I have really spoken in public like this, and so there's a lot.
You're doing great.
Now, when we get to the interview, it is very important to have an understanding ahead of time with the person that you're going to interview. For us, we need to modify the interview in how things are asked. General questions will end up ruining the hiring process for us. For instance, I had a company that I interviewed for that said, this was the exact question: what would you do if the email server went down? Now, I have experience with email servers, and I sat there because in my head, I'm spooling up all the information about all of the issues I have seen with email servers. And I gave them a 15-minute answer that they didn't understand because they had no idea about the issues with email servers. So I use info dump now. I used to use word vomit. Now, so also avoid ambiguous language. So making the question detailed. What is it exactly that you want us to answer? And leave it at that. Now, I believe that you'll find by changing the interview process like this, you'll actually get better answers from all of the other candidates that you interview anyway. Also, if you do slip up, you need to allow extra time for us to answer. If we give you this look, or we're looking away, or whatnot, that is our brain just spooling up what we believe you're asking for. Also, many times in interviews, they will have notes, and in those notes will be answers that they are used to getting to questions that they ask everyone else. You may find yourself getting an answer that's very diverse or unique or something you've never heard of or insights you never thought about. That doesn't mean they're wrong. So when you go in to interview someone, I would encourage every company to not use predetermined answers because you never know what you're going to get. Now, the work environment. This is a big one because there are autistic people who have a strong sense of smell, so that may be a huge sensory factor for them. So just placing them by the break room or a kitchen is a terrible idea. There are those where there may be high traffic areas like myself that would be highly impacted by the ability to work with so much happening around me. It's very distracting. There are also things like light. Light can be very intense. In fact, I have time for this, so I'd like you to put your cups down, close your eyes, and then place your hands over your eyes so that it's completely black. And I'm going to count to 10. And when I get to 10, I want you to pull your hands away and open your eyes as quickly as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's very bright, yes? Now imagine that you're working day in and day out, living your life day in and day out, and it is that bright all the time. So your need to have lower light settings, anywhere that you can get them, or the use of polarized lenses are a big help. Now for those who, like myself, who there are just certain frequencies of the human voice and other things that can really mess with me. Noise canceling headphones, which is something that a lot of people take to work with them when they can. Airports, I don't travel without noise canceling headphones. Can't do it. I just can't do it. With so many people, wearing earbuds to work for music or podcasts or whatnot, this one is a much easier one to really begin to help companies implement. There are other things though. Particular fabrics can be a real struggle for people who don't like touch to begin with. So understanding that when they bring their Sunday best to Sears, it may not look like your Sunday best. And really, it's all about the questions. Being able to question and get the Q&A started before you even meet with them allows you to better understand that person, allows you to begin to be more proactive in understanding that. However, what you don't want to do is create some type of an in-house manual or guide for this because, again, each autistic person is affected different from autism. So really, what this is going to do, it's going to help you go back to what we used to do, these one-on-one relationships that get built between employer and employee, and having that quick understanding. like maybe you would your neighbors. Well, you're not with them all the time, but you develop this rapport. And this has been missing for a long time in the workplace. Also, for those, and this is another topic, how many really have an understanding of executive function? Okay. Executive function has everything to do with how we organize, how we manage our time, how we deal with things we need to remember, and the like. That's a whole nother talk. However, with some autistics, even myself, the more direction in terms of better descriptions, being very precise with how you would like a job done, is going to let us tune our abilities directly to that job with less start and stops. The starts and stops and the disruptions are things that keep us off track, and then it becomes an epic struggle to get back on track. So, in closing, this is what I want to leave you with. We have emotion just like you, only our ability to express it is often very challenging, and the way we express it will come out differently than what you might be used to. That being said, you have to ask yourself as a company, if I knew how to bring people in who, given the right setting, are 40% more productive and efficient in the work they do, if once we work with them so that they have a comfort level that makes work like a routine, and that comfort level keeping them there so that you're having less new employee trainings going forward. Also, having the ability of having someone that works in your company that thinks so far outside the box that they can look in and find those patterns and those fine details that everyone else may miss. What is that worth to your company? Before I close for questions, I want to recognize someone who I have met this week, and she is a great, great lady. And I really look forward to a lot of conversations and open to doing some collaborations with her. Rami, will you please stand? Today is Rami's birthday. And this was really big for me. Rami could have gone and had a really nice breakfast this morning with her family, but she chose to come here and listen to this talk. Now, this talk is important to her, and I'm so honored that she is here today because she has a son who's late diagnosed. I look forward to meeting him. So, I want to thank absolutely everyone who makes Startup Week possible. For those who are here and aren't here, I want to thank the great friends that I have made at WSU. I want to thank one of my gardening neighbors who is in the back for coming. Robert, I want to thank you for the friendship we've established. I look forward to, and the many people here who I have established a friendship with. All of you, whether it's Startup Week or the regulars at 1 Million Cups, have become very important to me. And I am so glad that you exist. Thank you.